Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
So today we're diving into a really interesting source. It's the transcript from a Nigerian movie, Threads, Vibes, and a Dash of Purple.
Right. And our mission basically is to unpack what's going on in this story.
Yeah, we're looking at the relationships, the challenges these characters face, their creativity.
And maybe find some surprising truths hidden in there. Think of it like following the different threads of their lives.
Exactly. And finding those little pops of insight, those dashes of purple maybe.
Could be. The story really throws us into the lives of these young people and their families.
And they're dealing with some serious stuff. I mean, illness, money problems.
Creative blocks, friendship drama, first love. It's a lot.
And some significant trauma layered underneath it all.
Yeah, it really brings home how much weight teenagers can be carrying, Stuff that isn't always visible on the surface.
So let's start pulling at those threads. The family connections seem like a good place to begin. The struggles woven in there.
Okay. Well, Chris is a really powerful example the source gives us. His inner world is described with the sewing metaphor. His soul is fed with needles and threads.
Which contrasts so sharply with his reality.
Totally. He's caring for a sick mom who needs help just getting up but refuses a nurse. And he's also looking after his little sister, Wendy. She's 12, has ADHD, needs stories read to her.
It's a huge amount of responsibility.
Yep.
The source really emphasizes this weight, doesn't it? Calling him a 17-year-old boy.
DJing in clubs just to make sure his family stays afloat.
Taking care of his baby sister while his mother. It's really stark.
It is. It shows how economic pressure can just force adulthood way too early. He's not just choosing this, it's survival.
Yeah, it really pushes back against that idea of typical teenage worries. His are different.
Much different. Then you have Matilda and her dad, Mr. T. That dynamic is interesting too.
He seems protective, but also really gets her passion, right? He's a chef.
Yeah, he's a chef. He checks up on her, even asks about Prince later on. But he genuinely believes in her sewing, thinks her work is too extraordinary to be hidden.
That support must be huge for her, especially with everything else going on.
Definitely. And we also get a glimpse, just briefly, of Matilda's mom's perspective after her divorce.
Right, feeling like she lost herself when her husband left me.
And was devastated about losing his status. It's quite revealing.
Yeah, it makes you think about how identity can get tangled up with external things, like marriage or status.
Exactly. And what happens when those things disappear? Where do you find yourself? It's quite profound.
Then there's Prince's mother. Her relationship with Prince is complicated.
Very. But we also see her intense focus on Wendy, her daughter. She actually says she wants to know the people around my daughter.
And adds that warning, I want them to know that I'm watching.
It feels like this protective instinct, maybe bordering on controlling, stemming from her own stuff, maybe projecting it.
Okay, so those are some of the family threads. What about the vibes between the characters? How they connect or don't connect?
Well, that first meeting between Prince and Matilda in the library is pretty classic awkward.
Oh, yeah, it really is. Prince seems genuinely interested, gives her some nice compliments.
Not only are you beautiful, but you appeared gorgeous as well, and I bet I can learn a thing or two from you. Pretty smooth,
And Matilda just slams the door shut. I don't date guys with kids. Just like that.
Ooh, yeah. And Prince calls her out, right? You're always this judgmental.
Which is fair. And later, she actually thinks about it. Realizes, while I was writing your story, you were doing the same thing.
She sees her own judgment, admits she just shattered his first impression.
And that apology later is key. I shouldn't have judged you. Admitting he probably saw her reckless parts, too.
It's such a good insight into how quick we are to make assumptions, and how important it is to own it when we get it wrong.
Definitely. And shifting connections or maybe broken connections are big in the friendships, too.
Oh, yeah. Matilda and Vanessa, that gets rough.
Matilda just cuts her off, and Vanessa's reaction is so raw.
You just cut people out of your life like we are scraps of fabric.
Wow. Given Matilda sews, that metaphor must sting.
It really lands. Shows how painful it feels to be discarded by a friend. And that friend group, there's more darkness there with Vincent.
Right. This is where it gets genuinely disturbing. Vincent's obsession with Matilda.
Yeah, the source calls it a next-level obsession. He goes through her diary, finds pages and pages about her.
And compares her to his dead sister, Verity. That's chilling.
It really is. It's a scary look at how grief and mental health issues can twist into something dangerous, projecting onto someone else.
And Vanessa was involved initially. She helped him get a scholarship.
Yeah, she was, which adds another layer of complication, but the source says she does try to fix things later.
Apologizes and makes sure he's getting help. Vance is getting the help he needs.
Right. So there's an attempt at acknowledging the harm and, maybe repairing some damage. It shows these relationships aren't simple. They can hurt and heal.
Okay, let's shift to a dash of purple. Creativity seems huge for these characters, especially Matilda's sewing.
Oh, absolutely. It's clearly not just a hobby for her. She says, sewing keeps me sane.
I decide where the thread goes. That sense of control?
Exactly. In a world that feels out of control, the descriptions are lovely too. Like, fabrics used to talk to her. Every stitch had a lesson.
And she has this goal, right?
Yeah.
The portfolio for America, the scholarship.
Yep. But she hits that wall, the creative block, which is so relatable for anyone who tries to make things.
Totally. And Prince has his music. DJing, rapping.
Yeah, his outlet. He says, the whole world could be falling apart, but once I play, I get to decide what sound stays. Another form of control through creativity.
And his lyrics aren't just noise, are they? They contrast legacy versus attention. His thought there.
Definitely. He's using his art to express his values, and that brings us back to the dash of purple.
The symbolism. Matilda uses it in her designs.
And realizes parts of herself are waiting to be sewn together. It's like integrating these fragmented pieces of her identity through the act of creating.
Finding wholeness. And her dad sees it too. Calls her work too extraordinary to be hidden.
That validation is so important. It really makes you think about our own creative things, big or small. How do they help us piece ourselves together?
Good question. But alongside this creativity, they're navigating some serious emotional storms.
Huge ones, and often hidden, like Matilda's dad just noticing something's wrong. Something is definitely wrong with you, my daughter.
And the source doesn't pull punches on the trauma. Matilda being sexually harassed at that party.
Yeah, that's heavy. And her struggle to talk about it is so real. That scene with Prince where she just says, I can't talk to me, what just happened?
It's heartbreaking. Shows how isolating trauma can be. Just finding the words is hard.
That silence around it. And then the confrontation between Prince and his mother. Wow.
That was intense. He is brutally honest with her.
Incredibly raw, telling her she'd lost herself after Dad left, that she was happier being his wife than you were being our mother.
Oof. And that she wasn't grieving love, but didn't know how to be anything else.
Is Prince being incredibly vulnerable, finally voicing the hurt and neglect he and Wendy felt? And he throws his own sacrifices back at her,
The DJing, taking care of Wendy while she was checked out.
Yeah. 17-year-old boy doing all that. It's a kid forced to be the parent, but leads to a breakthrough, right?
It seems like as she finally hears him, realizes, decides to get real help.
Painful honesty leading to change. We also see Matilda's dad giving her some solid advice on anger.
Right. The moment you allow your anger take the wheel, you will lose it.
And even when you're furious, you can still control what you say. Good advice for anyone, really.
It all reinforces that point the source makes. See, teenagers are just carrying more weight and hiding more cracks.
Exactly. Age isn't a shield. They might look grown up, but they still need support. So much support.
Okay, so let's focus on the heart of the story, Prince and Matilda, their connection.
It starts so awkwardly at the library, but it definitely evolves.
You see them drawn to each other, making excuses, like the hair braiding session that's not a date.
Right. And the banter starts. Prince saying, my charm is working.
And Matilda's comeback. Maybe I'm just a creative genius. It's cute.
It is. But then the trauma and pain cause these massive misunderstandings. After the party incident, Matilda just lashes out at Prince.
Saying really hurtful things. Your little world is broken. About playing savior to his mom who'd rather eat her life away. Just brutal.
Oh, yeah. Cuts right to the bone. And you see the impact immediately. Prince just shuts down.
Hasn't been to school in a week. Not talking to friends. His hurt is so clear.
It really shows the power of words, doesn't it? Especially when someone's already vulnerable.
But they do find their way back towards that reconciliation.
And it requires real vulnerability. Prince apologizes for not being there, but his real hurt is about the trust issue.
Fact that you didn't even trust me to, tell me what happened is what I don't understand. That feels real.
Totally. And Matilda finally opens up about the chaos inside of me. Her fear of sharing her burdens.
And that honesty.
Yeah.
That's what allows them to finally see each other's struggles, to connect on a deeper level.
Which leads to that declaration of love. It's beautiful how it happens.
Prince has that playful challenge, 3 dates.
But Matilda just cuts through it with this incredible honesty. I fell in love with you the moment you walked away from me at the library.
Wow. right back to that first awkward meeting. It completely flips Prince's cynical view of love as just a four-letter word.
It shows love isn't always about the big moments, but sometimes recognizing something profound, even in passing.
So as the story wraps up, things seem to be moving in a more positive direction.
Yeah, there are definite steps forward. Vincent is getting help. Matilda's mom is getting real help.
And Matilda's work is getting showcased, thanks to her dad.
Right, and Prince and Matilda, their relationship is actually starting, symbolized by him doing the music for her fashion show.
Their paths are intertwining now, based on that hard-won understanding.
Exactly, built on vulnerability.
So this deep dive into threads, vibes, and a dash of purple, it really lays bare the complexity of family, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the weight of grief and trauma when it's not addressed, but also the power of creativity as a lifeline.
And that tough journey towards being vulnerable and trusting others in relationships.
Yeah, the source talks about that contrast, showing a selective truth versus like real, messy, honest vulnerability.
Which kind of leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it, for ourselves?
Mm-hmm. How do you balance protecting yourself? Because we all have our own burden, our own hidden cracks with the need to actually let people in.
Is being vulnerable mainly a risk? Or is it where the real strength, the real connection lies?
And how do the different truths we tell, the ones we show versus the ones we hide, actually shape our relationships? Something to think about as you navigate your own threads and vibes.